The year was 2327, and humanity had expanded its influence across 3 galaxies: the Milky Way, Andromeda, and Triangulum. The alliance of extraterrestrial species, known as Alliance, had maintained a fragile peace for nearly 50 years under the Mind Treaty that protected all forms of life. At the Zenith Nexus space station, positioned 2.7 light-years from Earth, representatives from 127 species gathered regularly to maintain the delicate balance of interstellar politics. General Marcus Danil stood at the observation deck of Zenith Nexus, his weathered face illuminated by the distant glow of stars. At 45, the commander of the Human Alliance fleet carried the weight of his species' future on his broad shoulders. His military record was impeccable, particularly noted for his strategic brilliance during the isolation of the Hegemony fleet in 2304. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The voice came from behind him, soft but confident. Marcus turned to see Dr. Evelyn Cho approaching. The 38-year-old head of Alliance Biochemical Sciences was dressed in her customary white lab coat, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Beauty is subjective when politics are involved," Marcus replied, his gaze returning to the vastness of space. Evelyn joined him at the viewport. "The council meeting didn't go well?" "When does it ever?" Marcus sighed. Brigadier General Ilkor presented the subpoena requiring us to halt all experimentation related to human maximum survival DNA. He spoke the Zayan representative's title with a mixture of respect and frustration. Despite their differences, Marcus couldn't help but respect the 172-year-old legislator who had once fought alongside him. "They fear what they don't understand," Evelyn said. "The mind shield array isn't a weapon. It's protection. Try explaining that to species who believe we're cultivating our war instinct beyond their control." The tension in the station was palpable. Earlier that day, at the Alliance press conference, journalists from across space had bombarded human representatives with accusations. Marcus and Evelyn had watched silently, their eyes betraying their determination to protect the Alliance's technological secrets. On Titan, Saturn's now terraformed moon, beneath layers of ice, lay the Alliance's most classified research facility. There, Evelyn's team worked tirelessly on the Mind Shield Array, a technology designed to protect the free will of humans against external influences. The Alliance believed it was something far more sinister. The quiet moment between Marcus and Evelyn was interrupted by an urgent beep from Marcus's communication device. "General Danil," he answered crisply. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing an officer whose face was contorted with panic. "Sir, we've received an emergency signal from Perseus 9 outpost. The message reads, 'Threat in progress. 5 alien species wiped out in the last 48 hours. Some kind of biological contagion spreading rapidly.'" Marcus's expression hardened. "Inform Brigadier General Ilkor. Alliance will want to call an emergency council meeting immediately." As the communication ended, Evelyn and Marcus exchanged knowing glances. This crisis could either unite them with Alliance against a common threat, or push them further into isolation. "You should return to Titan," Marcus said quietly. "Activate Shields of Resolve. We may need it sooner than expected." Evelyn nodded, her eyes reflecting both determination and apprehension. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Within hours, the Alliance Council chamber was filled with representatives from across the 3 galaxies. The atmosphere was charged with tension as holographic displays showed the devastation at Perseus 9, located at the midpoint between Andromeda and the Milky Way. Brigadier General Ilkor stood tall, his blue-tinged skin glistening under the chamber's lights. The Zayan's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress among his kind. "The biological threat has been identified as an organism we're calling Zetar," Ilkor announced. "It appears to be adapting and evolving at an unprecedented rate, transforming into what our scientists are terming Entity Sentinel." The chamber erupted in panicked murmurs. Ilkor raised a hand for silence. The human alliance has developed technologies that might help us combat this threat, he continued, turning to Marcus. General Danil, we request immediate access to all research related to advanced biological countermeasures. Marcus stepped forward, his face impassive. The technology you're referring to is still experimental. It requires careful handling and— We don't have time for careful handling, shouted a representative from the Kelvit Collective, a coalition of insectoid species. If humans withhold solutions while our people die, it will be remembered as an act of war. Marcus remained calm. I'm not withholding anything. I'm simply stating that rushing deployment of untested technology could cause more harm than good. Meanwhile, on Titan, Avalon had assembled her science team in the Chameleon Vault, the heart of their research facility buried beneath the moon's icy surface. Remove the neural masking, she commanded. The team worked quickly, disabling the protective layers that concealed the Sophos X AI server from detection. As the system came online, the room filled with a soft blue glow. Holographic displays showed intricate chains of athanic ferret reactions designed to activate extreme survival genes in human cells. Dr. Cho, this has gone too far. The voice belonged to Colonel Hyun Kato, a stern-faced military scientist who had recently joined the project. What we're doing here violates not just Alliance regulations, but basic ethical principles. Avalon turned to face her. Colonel, I understand your concerns, but you've seen the reports from Perseus 9. If the Zytar reaches populated systems, billions will die. And how many will die if we unleash this? Kato gestured to the glowing displays. This technology doesn't just enhance survival, it changes what it means to be human. Their argument was interrupted by an alert. Security feeds showed a fleet of unidentified vessels approaching Titan. That's not Alliance, one of the technicians said, voice trembling. Magnified images revealed ships unlike any they'd seen before, organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse with life. The Zetar had evolved far beyond what anyone had anticipated, transforming from a biological contagion into sentient entities capable of space travel. They're targeting us specifically, Avalon realized with horror. Somehow they know what we're developing here. Back at Zenith Nexus, Marcus received the alert about Titan. Without waiting for council approval, he activated his command protocols. Deploy the frontline vanguard to Titan immediately, he ordered. All pilots, all special forces. This is not a drill. Ilkor approached him as the council dissolved into chaos. What have you done, Marcus? He asked quietly. What have humans created that draws these entities to you? Nothing, Marcus answered firmly. But we may have created the only thing that can stop them. The Zayan's expression was unreadable. The Council is issuing an ultimatum. 72 hours to surrender your technology, or the Alliance will be completely isolated, all communication systems severed, all economic ties cut. Marcus met his old friend's gaze. Then we have 72 hours to save everyone, or it won't matter either way. The next 48 hours were chaos. On Titan, Avalon's team worked frantically to complete the mineshield array, while the frontline vanguard established defensive positions around the facility. Colonel Kato had disappeared during the initial confusion. Avalon feared what that might mean, but couldn't spare the time to investigate. Every moment was precious as they rushed to finalize the technology that might be humanity's only hope. The neural pathways are unstable, reported one scientist. If we activate the array now, there's a 70% chance of cognitive fragmentation in subjects. Keep working, Avalon ordered. We need at least 90% stability. On the surface, the battle had already begun. The Zytar forces had evolved into massive insectoid creatures that seemed impervious to conventional weapons. They secreted a substance that corroded both metal and organic matter, and they moved with terrifying speed and precision. Marcus commanded from the battlecruiser Hyperion, coordinating defense forces across Titan. They're targeting communication relays, reported Lieutenant Zara Harlow, one of his most trusted pilots. It's like they know exactly how to cripple our operations. They're learning, Marcus replied grimly, adapting to every tactic we deploy. The battle raged for hours. Human forces fought valiantly, but the Zetar seemed endless. For every one they destroyed, two more appeared. Then came the transmission they'd been dreading. General, Zara's voice cracked with strain. They've breached the outer defenses. They're heading for the Chamlian Vault. Marcus made the decision instantly. Sacrifice the Hyperion. Position it over the main entrance and initiate self-destruct. We need to buy Dr. Cho more time. The battlecruiser's destruction temporarily halted the Zetar advance, creating a molten barrier that even the adaptive creatures couldn't immediately cross. But it wouldn't hold for long. Beneath the surface, Avalyn received the news of Marcus's sacrifice with quiet determination. We're running out of time, she told her team. Prepare the mind shield for preliminary testing. But the stability, a technician began. Is the best we're going to get, Avalyn finished. She rolled up her sleeve. I'll be the test subject. Before anyone could object, she injected herself with the experimental mind shield serum. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her eyes widened as neural connectors activated throughout her brain, linking her consciousness to the Sophos X system. It's incredible, she whispered. Her perception expanded, taking in data streams from across the facility. She could feel the presence of every human on Titan, their minds like distant stars in a neural cosmos. Dr. Cho, your vital signs are spiking, one of the scientists warned. Your brain activity is off the charts. Avalyn barely heard him. The mind shield was working, but differently than expected. Instead of just protecting her mind, it was enhancing it, connecting her to a collective human consciousness that had never before been accessible. And within that connection, she sensed something else. Rage. Pure, unfiltered human rage at being cornered, at being threatened. The primal instinct to fight, to survive at all costs. Shut it down, she gasped, suddenly afraid of what she'd unleashed. The mind shield isn't just a defense. It's amplifying our most aggressive instincts. But it was too late. The system had already begun broadcasting, sending neural signals to every human on Titan. And from there, through the interstellar network, to humans throughout the solar system. At Zenith Nexus, the 72-hour deadline approached. Ilkor had assembled 12 chairpersons and representatives from Alliance's most influential species. None were willing to approve emergency testing of the human technology, fearing a future where enhanced humans could not be controlled. The vote is final, Ilkor announced reluctantly. The Human Alliance must surrender all research related to the Mind Shield array immediately, or face complete isolation. Marcus, attending via holographic projection from a secondary command center near Titan, received the news with cold resignation. Then, you've condemned not just humanity, but yourselves as well. As if in response to his words, alarms blared throughout Zenith Nexus. Security feeds showed Zetar vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel, surrounding the station. They followed us here, Marcus realized. Or they followed your representatives from Perseus 9. Panic erupted in the council chamber. The Zetar launched their attack, breaching the station's outer defenses with frightening ease. Their biological weapons, nanosick projectiles, dissolved both infrastructure and living tissue on contact. Ilkor watched in horror as council members fell, their bodies disintegrating before his eyes. Security forces fought back, but their weapons proved ineffective against the rapidly adapting creatures. Marcus, Ilkor transmitted through the chaos. If your technology can stop this, use it. Use it now. On Titan, the situation was equally dire. The Chamlian Vault had been breached. Zetar entities poured into the facility, overwhelming the remaining defenders. Avalyn, still connected to the Mind Shield system, felt each human death like a light being extinguished in her consciousness. "There's only one option left," she told the surviving scientists. "Full activation. Broadcast the mind shield signal to every human in the 3 galaxies." "But the psychological effects," someone protested, "are better than extinction," Evelyn finished. With trembling hands, she initiated the sequence. In his command center, Marcus received Evelyn's transmission. "I'm activating it. Marcus, the mind shield will connect all of humanity through the neural network. But it won't just protect us. It will change us. Are you ready for that responsibility?" Marcus closed his eyes briefly, weighing the fate of his species against the potential consequences. "Do it," he finally said. "May whatever gods exist forgive us." The activation sequence completed. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, across Titan, across the solar system, across 3 galaxies, humans stopped whatever they were doing. Their eyes glazed over, then sharpened with newfound clarity. And within those eyes burned a crimson light, the physical manifestation of ancient survival instincts, unleashed and amplified beyond all natural limits. The century hour had begun. Human military vessels that had been maintaining peaceful positions suddenly broke formation. Weapons powering up. Civilian ships altered course, moving with newfound purpose toward Zetar concentrations. On countless worlds, humans stopped mid-sentence, mid-task, and began moving toward armories, toward spacecraft, toward anything that could be used to fight. At Zenith Nexus, human staff members turned on their non-human colleagues, not with hatred, but with cold, calculated efficiency. They weren't seeking revenge. They were eliminating threats as defined by their newly enhanced survival instincts. Ilkor watched in horror as humans he'd known for years, reasonable, compassionate individuals, transformed into perfect killing machines, their movements precise, their decisions instantaneous, their mercy non-existent. "Marcus," he transmitted, "what have you done to your people?" But Marcus himself had changed. The mind shield had reached him too, connecting him to the collective will of humanity. When he spoke, his voice was calm but utterly devoid of the friendship that had once existed between them. "We gave you a chance to stand with us," he said. "Now stand aside." Across 3 galaxies, the pattern repeated. Human forces engaged both Zetar and any Eliance ships that attempted to intervene. They fought with unprecedented coordination, as if guided by a single mind. Traditional battle formations were abandoned in favor of seemingly chaotic maneuvers that nevertheless achieved perfect strategic outcomes. The Zetar, for all their adaptive capabilities, could not match this sudden evolution in human warfare. Their biological advantages meant nothing against an enemy that no longer feared death, that no longer hesitated, that no longer recognized limits. Within hours, reports flooded into what remained of Alliance Command. Zetar forces were retreating, being systematically destroyed by humans who pursued them relentlessly across star systems. But the victory came at a terrible cost. More than 10,000 Alliance vessels had gathered around Titan, hoping to contain the situation. They were met by twice that number of human ships, operating without any recognizable command structure or protocol. The resulting conflict was brief, but devastating. Human forces did not seek to minimize casualties or collateral damage. They simply eliminated obstacles with ruthless efficiency. Ilkor, watching from a secure facility on Zenith Nexus, felt his world crumbling as decades of treaties disintegrated in minutes. The Alliance Emergency Council activated the Omega Containment Sphere, a last resort measure that created an impenetrable energy barrier around the entire solar system, cutting off all communication and travel. On Titan, the Chameleon Vault lay in ruins. Evelyn, pinned beneath collapsed infrastructure, felt her connection to the mind shield weakening as her life ebbed away. With her last strength, she recorded a final message. This is the moment humanity released all restraint. Remember us, not as the monsters we became, but as those who refused to surrender survival, even at the cost of our humanity. On Earth capital, now renamed New Gaia, civilians received the news with confusion and horror. Humanity has opened fire on friends of thousands of years. The careful diplomatic work of generations had been undone in a single day. Marcus, now viewed as a traitor by those few military leaders who had somehow avoided the Mindshield's influence, was confined to his command vessel. He watched through viewports as Alliance forces established the containment barrier, isolating humanity from the rest of the universe. In his mind, still partially influenced by the fading effects of the Mindshield, he wondered if he had saved his species or condemned it. 3 months passed. The Alliance blockade of the solar system remained in place. The human alliance, cut off from its extrasolar colonies and resources, descended into chaos. Food networks collapsed. Resource shortages became critical, and internal conflicts erupted as the Mindshield's effects gradually diminished, leaving people to confront what they had done. More than 40% of the human population died in the aftermath, casualties of the initial conflict, subsequent resource wars, or suicide, when the full horror of their actions under the Mindshield's influence became clear. On what remained of Titan, a group of surviving children formed the Titan Scholars, dedicated to preserving Avalon's final message. Rebuild civilization from the ashes. Learn to control the flow of emotions so that we never lose ourselves again. 20 years later, the event was still referred to across civilizations as the day humanity lost patience. It had been divided into historical periods. Humanity's Great Fracture, the 72 dark hours when the Mindshield transformed humans into something beyond recognition. The Neo-Remnant Era, when subsequent generations, calling themselves Neo-Terra, began the slow process of rebuilding, establishing the Charter of Reason and Wisdom to prevent collective will from ever again exceeding ethical boundaries. On a small settlement built from the ruins of the Chamlian Vault, a 15-year-old Neo-Terra girl read Avalon's testament aloud during a remembrance ceremony. We are a species of survivors, but we are not destroyers. Someday, the stars will open again to humankind. The audience, mostly children born after the fracture, listened solemnly. Among them sat an aging Zara Harlow, one of the few military personnel to have partially resisted the Mindshield's influence. Next to her was a Zayan diplomat, the first non-human allowed into the solar system in 2 decades. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" Zara asked quietly. The Zayan considered the question. Forgiveness requires understanding. The universe is still trying to understand what happened here. And Ilkor, did he survive? Yes. He leads the Reconciliation Council now. It was his petition that allowed me to come here today. Zara nodded, watching the young girl who continued reading Avalon's words. These children have never known a world beyond our solar system. They've been raised on stories of what we lost, what we did. Perhaps that is appropriate, the Zayan replied. No species will ever forget the moment when humans finally lost their patience. But perhaps we can all learn from it. Above them, through a transparent dome, the stars shone with distant promise. The Omega containment sphere had been partially dismantled, allowing limited observation but still preventing travel. It was a small gesture, the beginning of a long process of rebuilding trust. In his private quarters on New Gaia, Marcus Danil, now an old man haunted by his decisions, received a transmission, the first from beyond the solar system, addressed directly to him in 20 years. Ilkor's aged face appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes now clouded with cataracts, but still sharp with intelligence. "Hello, old friend," the Zayan said. Marcus stared in disbelief. "After everything that happened, you still call me friend. Time grants perspective. I understand now what you faced, an impossible choice between extinction and transformation. I chose wrongly, Marcus said bitterly. I unleashed something terrible. Perhaps, but the Zetar were defeated, and from that terrible moment, something new is emerging. Ilkor leaned closer to the screen. The Reconciliation Council has voted. We're sending teachers, diplomats, scientists, a formal exchange program with the Neo-Terra generation. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. Why? After what we did? Because isolation serves no one. Because your descendants have proven themselves different through their charter of reason and wisdom. Ilkor paused. And because Avalon was right about one thing, humanity's greatest strength has always been its ability to survive, to adapt, to rebuild from ashes. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He moved to his window, looking out at the rebuilt cityscape of New Gaia. Children played in parks specially designed to teach cooperation rather than competition. Schools emphasized emotional control alongside intellectual development. They were no longer the humanity he had known. Perhaps they were something better. In the central plaza of New Gaia, a memorial had been erected, a cracked omega symbol, representing both an ending and a beginning. Beneath it, in multiple languages including those of Eliant's species, were inscribed words attributed to Avalon Cho. The greatest test of intelligence is not domination, but coexistence. The greatest expression of power is not destruction, but creation. We fell once. We rise now, wiser. Throughout the settlements of Neo-Terra, the sun set on the 20th anniversary of the fracture. Candles were lit, not in celebration, but in remembrance and commitment. The descendants of those who had lost their patience now dedicated themselves to finding a new virtue, enduring wisdom. And in the vast emptiness between galaxies, the last of the Zetar entities drifted, dormant but not dead. Evolution had not ended. Adaptation continued. Someday, they might return in a new form. But when that day came, they would find a humanity transformed, not by the mind shield's artificial rage, but by the harder path of genuine growth. A humanity that remembered its darkest hour and chose a different future. No species would ever forget the moment when humans finally lost their patience. But perhaps, in time, they would also remember the moment when humanity found its way back from the abyss. The 15-year-old Neo-Terra girl finished reading Avalon's testament and looked up at the stars. Unlike her ancestors, she did not see them as conquests waiting to happen. She saw them as a community waiting to be rejoined. Once trust was rebuilt and wisdom earned. She placed her hand on the memorial, feeling the cool metal under her fingers. "We will do better," she whispered, a promise to the past and the future. "We will be patient." Above her, beyond the partially dismantled containment sphere, a small Alliance vessel received permission to enter solar space, the first in 20 years to carry passengers rather than just communications. The reconciliation had begun. Across 3 galaxies, species that had feared and then hated humanity watched with cautious optimism. The day humanity lost patience had changed everything, but perhaps the day humanity found wisdom would change it again. And in the deepest vault of the rebuilt Titan facility, secured behind countless safeguards, a single data crystal contained the complete specifications of the Mindshield array, preserved not for use, but as a reminder of power's ultimate cost. Next to it lay Avalon's final research notes, their edges charred, but the message clear. Our greatest enemy was never the Zetar. It was our own capacity for unchecked power. Remember this. Teach this. The stars will forgive us only if we first learn to forgive ourselves while never forgetting what we became. The Neo-Remnant era continued, year by year, building toward a future where humanity might once again take its place among the stars. not as conquerors, not as weapons, but as a species that had faced its darkest nature and chosen to evolve beyond it. That was the legacy of the day humanity lost patience. Not just destruction, but the painful birth of something new from the ashes of what had been lost. And no species would ever forget.